Our elections and our Constitution have been circumvented and subjugated.
My belief is that there's a mountain of corruption concealed by an ocean of incompetence.
I just want to know what the truth is.
Hello? My name's Chris Ingalls. I'm a reporter from King 5. We're just going to several different addresses that they put in their report. They said you were a ghost voter.
I don't know how they could, say we're ineligible voters if they've never actually come out to actually see.
Small issues don't mean fraud.
Have you found fraud out there?
I don't know if the word fraud is relevant. What is relevant is there are a lot of questions.
You say you don't like to use the word fraud, but you know that people, candidates maybe, will take your report and say, this is evidence that my election was stolen.
Here in Mason County, volunteers went on the hunt for vote fraud using addresses they got from voter registration records. At Coulter Creek Road in Belfair, they turned left onto a street lined with trees and vacant lots. A property on this street is Exhibit Number 1 in a report of confirmed voter anomalies from the Mason County Voter Research Project. The report says this is vacant land, yet 4 voters are registered at this address who voted in the 2020 general election. Listing vacant land could be a violation because voters are required to register the address where they live.
Is it really voter fraud? We came to Mason County to find out, and pretty quickly learned it wasn't voters who did anything wrong. Are there actually 4 registered voters here?
There should be, yeah.
Tabitha lives at this home on Coulter Creek Road, where there are 4 registered voters, her family members.
Me and my husband, and then my father-in-law and my mother-in-law.
Voter Research Project's own records list her correct address, but it appears the group's canvassers turned left onto Coulter Creek Road when they should have gone right on Coulter Creek Road South, where there are several houses.
We tracked you down, pretty straightforward.
Yes.
What would you say about their methods?
Yeah, that they need to do more research, and it really didn't seem that difficult to find us.
Hello? Anybody home?
The canvassers also missed this Coulter Creek address, again visiting the wrong side of the road, another vacant lot highlighted in their report.
So there's 2 registered voters here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really think it just seems like an error in how it was documented.
So that's 2 registered voters at this address that are legit. There's 4 more down the street that are legit. So with this one stop alone, we've been able to strike 6 voter anomalies on their list.
The voter research report says volunteers found 239 voter anomalies in Mason County after several months of canvassing door-to-door this year and last.
My name's Chris Ingalls. I'm a reporter from King 5. We're just going to several different addresses that they put in their report.
We put their findings to the test.
Here's an address where they supposedly have 4 different registered voters at one address. I'm researching a potential story on voter registration.
Visiting about 12.5 addresses to investigate their most striking claims. Did a dead man vote from this Shelton address? The report says a voter who died in the summer of 2019 cast a ballot in 2020. County Elections got a post office notice that the man moved to Arizona in 2021, where he died later. Info we confirmed with 2 neighbors. So a dead man didn't vote, at least not from this address.
Does that make any sense to you?
No.
They said you were a ghost voter.
Canvassers claim they talked to Mary, who said she didn't vote in the 2020 election, although records show a ballot cast in her name. They wrote that a mysterious ghost voter cast her ballot.
When was the last time you think you voted?
I don't know.
Mary didn't recall canvassers coming to her door and couldn't confirm the accuracy of what they reported about her.
Andrew was registered here.
Andrew was registered here?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
About 2 years ago he moved.
Do you get ballots for anybody?
No.
No. The report says something about people being registered here, but they don't actually live here.
I honestly don't remember them asking anything.
Sometimes the truth could be found in the report itself. This voter in the Coast Guard, like any military member, can legally stay registered at their last Washington address and have their ballot mailed overseas.
This is 925 Thomas Avenue?
No.
Oh, it's not?
We made mistakes while canvassing addresses, so it is easy to do. But overall, we found most of the voter registrations we checked out were not anomalies. They could be explained or verified as legitimate voters.
Hi, this is Mason County Elections calling.
At Mason County Elections, where workers are constantly updating voter registration rolls,
I've been doing elections work since 2000.
the county auditor says 80% of the reported anomalies were either already known or just wrong.
They have identified 67 voters that I would describe as possible anomalies. Not confirmed anomalies, but possible. We have 44,500 registered voters in Mason County. One is too many, but 67 is a pretty small number.
I'm happy to introduce you to Steve Dunkel, who's running for Mason County Auditor.
The report's author, former Boeing manager Steve Dunkel, is an election denier who's running for the Mason County Auditor's office on an election fraud platform.
There's a lot of questions out there about our voting machines, a lot of uncertainty.
Dunkel did not respond to our repeated requests for an interview. His report isn't entirely wrong. It lists 12 voters registered to post office boxes inside this Belfair store instead of their actual home addresses.
Are they allowed to register at a P.O. box?
No.
Auditor Patty McGuire says he significantly reduced post office box registrations 3 years ago using new software that identified about 100 voters registered to P.O. boxes.
What we have done in all of those cases is mailed those voters a notice and said, please update your registration, tell us where you live.
Isn't that enough to cancel their registration?
Not under law, no.
If you're the auditor and you know people are improperly registered to vote there and you can't do anything about it, that's a problem.
I think it's important to recognize that small issues don't mean fraud.
Does that make any sense to you?
No, it doesn't.
And that's what we found out on the streets.
They might have got the wrong address.
Small issues, some misunderstandings, all part of a democracy striving for full and fair elections.
I appreciate your answering my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, couldn't be more help.
No, you were helpful. Thank you.
Volunteers from the King County Voter Research Project zeroed in on the Trailer Inns RV park in Bellevue after reviewing county election records showing that several voters are registered here. They flagged it as possible fraud by 20 voters who were voting from a business that rents RV spaces, in this report submitted to King County Elections, which we received through a records request.
We've got people that are overnighters, and we've got people that have been here close to 20 years.
A spokesperson says the trailer park is home for some people, but the Voter Research Project claimed they violated the requirement that voters register at their actual residential address.
We couldn't afford a house when we sold ours back in Utah, so we've been living in this for almost 2 years.
Dustin Reed, who works for the Department of Veterans Affairs, lives with his family of 4 in this 43-footer.
It does come to this address.
His mail-in ballot to this address is one of the voter anomalies at the trailer park identified in the report.
I don't know how they could, say we're ineligible voters if they've never actually come out to actually see, right? I've never met anybody out here to say, do you really live here?
King County Elections headquarters, we asked the director about voters registered at trailer parks.
Is there anything wrong with that?
Absolutely not. People can use a non-traditional address here in Washington State to get registered, provide us with a mailing address. In this list, there were voters that are military, overseas, unhoused, or currently have a non-traditional address.
So Dustin's voter registration.
So for them to say we're ineligible is just kind of mind-boggling.
And the others here are all legal.
With this one stop alone, we've been able to strike 20 names from their voter anomaly list.
Voter Research Project says it found 444 registration anomalies in months of door-to-door canvassing in King County.
My name is Chris Ingalls. I'm a reporter from King TV. How are you? Nobody came to the door asking about a guy named Schomburg. I'm just trying to verify what they've reported.
In other areas, like the story we aired from Mason County last month, volunteers listed names, addresses, and specific information in their reports that allowed us to follow up by going door to door.
We're just going to several different addresses that they put in their report.
But King County Voter Research Project only identified a name and voter ID number. other than the trailer park, we could not reliably locate other voters in their report.
This is a big county. Again, 1.4 million registered voters.
Elections Director Julie Wise had her team analyze the Voter Research Project report, in which almost all of the listed anomalies are voters who moved but are still registered at their old addresses.
I didn't see anything on that list that that voters were doing anything that's illegal or inaccurate.
She says the registration information that volunteers relied on was outdated.
90% of the voters had updated their address by the time that the canvassers went out to look at the addresses.
Did you see anything that rises to the level of fraud in their report?
I did not see anything in the report that rises to the level of fraud.
How many volunteers out on the streets?
So we've had roughly up to 50.
This is the man behind the report. Boeing retiree Dave Griffin and his volunteers have been combing King County neighborhoods on behalf of the Voter Research Project.
We're out looking and trying to help clean up the voter rolls in Washington State.
He's undeterred by King County's finding that his canvassing team has uncovered few anomalies, if any.
How would you characterize the security of our vote in King County?
I think there is a lot of room for improvement.
Have you found fraud out there?
I don't know if the word fraud is relevant. What is relevant is there are a lot of questions.
You say you don't like to use the word fraud, but you know that people, candidates maybe, will take your report and say, this is evidence that my election was stolen.
The solution is to have clean voter rolls. And the solution is to have clean elections.
What's the one smoking gun? I mean, the one case that you can look at in your report and say, look at this is what we're talking about.
Griffin pointed us to his report's claim that immigrants, visa holders, are registered to vote unknowingly through the state's motor voter program.
Somehow, our systems has allowed them to be signed up to vote.
Give me those names and addresses, and I will check them out.
I'm not saying no, I'm saying let me check, because I don't want to give out someone else's private information that would put them in jeopardy.
The voting dead. In Skagit County, at least 43 deceased voters cast ballots from beyond the grave, according to a report filled with allegations of election fraud filed with the county elections office. The late Jerry Shears is one of the supposedly posthumous voters.
He would be just rolling over in his grave right now if he knew it, because it's just so much against what he believed in.
His widow, Elizabeth Shears, says Jerry lived as a model citizen in Skagit County and spent the last years of his life riddled with cancer.
Did you cast a vote for Jerry after he died?
No.
Elections records confirm Jerry's last ballot from his home on Guimas Island off Anacortes was mailed in for a special election last February, 1 month before he died.
What would Jerry think of that if he thought that somebody voted for him?
He'd be livid.
The name of the farm was S&T Little Horses. My grandparents had it together.
Angela Pillman lives on the 5-acre property in LaConner, where her grandmother died 4 months after she cast her ballot in November, according to election records.
That's my grandmother's obituary. Date of death was February 28th.
But Dorothy Stevens is listed as an anomaly in the report. Voter is deceased.
She wouldn't have liked it to have had her name falsely represented on something like that.
This spreadsheet, submitted to Skagit Elections in June, includes the names of 14 voters who supposedly cast ballots from the grave. Obvious vote fraud by someone. But we easily located online obituaries that showed all 14 died after their last vote.
It's a crime what they're trying to do. It really is. It's a crime against democracy.
The County Republican Party is behind the Skagit Voter Integrity Project, which claims canvassing by volunteers has uncovered more than 3,200 voter registration anomalies. That's nearly 4% of the 85,000 registered voters in Skagit County.
Hello? Hi, kitty.
We went door to door to investigate some of their claims.
Strange question. My name is Chris Ingalls. I'm a reporter from King TV.
In Mount Vernon, a caregiver let us in to speak with 89-year-old Marilyn Wheeler.
I'm surprised by my being on the list.
We tracked Mrs. Wheeler down because this is what the report says about her. Voter may not be competent to vote.
So their report says, voter may not be competent to vote.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
it's wrong. It's wrong for anybody to decide that I'm incompetent to vote.
Mrs. Wheeler doesn't know who thinks she's incapable of voting or why.
Did anybody come and talk to you about this?
No, I did not. There's been nobody.
Can I show you what they said?
The drive-by judgment of this voter at a home in this tidy Mount Vernon neighborhood is even worse.
It says check citizenship. Citizenship should be checked. This voter has lived here 4 years, and it takes longer than that to become a citizen.
Wow.
Eduardo says he's lived in the U.S. for 25 years.
Doesn't feel good people talking about us like that when they don't really know us. We are U.S. citizens.
He has no idea why the report says his citizenship should be checked and why no one came to his door to find the truth.
Very disrespectful to who I am as a person. They just assume of what I am and who I am as well.
This doesn't look accurate to you, though, from what you know here.
Voter received 2 ballots? No.
The report lists numerous other voter registration anomalies that we found were incorrect or could not be confirmed. They flagged this house because the residence doesn't seem to be occupied. But registration records from the county show the same voter has been registered here for 2 years. At this house on Fowler and this one on 5th Street, canvassers wrote, "Address does not exist."
Nobody's answering the door, but there's a mailbox up there that says 120.
But we found both houses with no problem. The report lists voters registered to numerous Skagit County campgrounds, RV parks, and marinas, and claims citizens cannot vote from this address.
We just picked up several bags of ballots.
At the Skagit County Elections Office, where ballots for the November contest are coming in, the election supervisor says those addresses are legit.
The state allows non-traditional addresses, and there are many people who live on a boat, so their home is a slip at that marina.
Have you been able to uncover any fraud as a result of what they've reported?
We've had a few things where things were questionable in the sense for us to look at them. Once we've researched them, everything's been fine and no amount of fraud has been found.
Our elections and our Constitution have been circumvented and subjugated.
The report is authored by Skagit County Republican Party Chair Bill Bruck, who waves the findings around as proof of elections fraud. Bruck has not responded to our repeated calls or messages, including a visit to the party office in Burlington earlier this month.
I think it's a bunch of hogwash.
We'll leave the final word on all this to the longtime Skagit resident that Bruck's report says is not capable of voting.
It's fraudulent research.
In the fertile farmlands near Skagit Valley.
Brother, the sun sets right over here every evening. It is absolutely the most beautiful scene. It just reminds me so much of my God and why I'm here.
Pastor Roy Swihart answered his calling.
I pray for everyone here.
And built the Cowboy Church on his farm in Bow.
Every voter, those that are wanting to make sure that the vote counts.
This video, posted on the website Rumble, shows a capacity crowd who sat for hours.
It would be nice if it were an honest election.
As presenters offered their evidence.
My belief is that there's a mountain of corruption concealed by an ocean of incompetence.
That elections across the country, and even here in Skagit County, are being stolen.
If people broke the law, we want them going to jail. That's where we're at.
Were you worried this issue would be too partisan for church?
I was a little bit concerned about that. There's the difference between a politician and a preacher. Politicians have to worry about what other people think, and I don't. Sunday morning church, we do it right inside.
On Pastor Swihart's farm, the horse arena turns into a dirt-floor church every Sunday.
As far as my responsibility as a pastor, I think it's important for me to navigate and educate myself with factual information.
Can we have a big round of applause, Roy and Amy Swihart, for allowing us to use their beautiful heritage ranch?
Pastor Swihart says that's why he agreed to host what was called the Skagit County Election Integrity Public Hearing, to hear an alternative voice from what TV and newspapers report.
I just want to know what the truth is.
The Cowboy Church isn't alone. By searching social media and the internet, we found election integrity events at several Puget Sound area churches.
Since the event in Bow in September of last year, we tracked similar programs at churches in Cedar-Woolley, Marysville, Snohomish, Federal Way, Puyallup, and Lacey. All events made claims that elections are swayed by incompetence or corruption.
Yes, he won. And we all know it. Because there's so much fraud here, it's easy to find.
The keynote speaker at the Cowboy Church was Douglas Frank, described as a physicist with a doctorate.
And I found a sixth-order polynomial in every state. And it's as high as it goes. And so it's like breadcrumbs. It's like America was stolen by an Excel spreadsheet.
Frank has crisscrossed the country, claiming that he's uncovered a secret algorithm that proves somebody, presumably Democrats, manipulates votes to win elections.
Your registration databases are where you're getting hacked. That's where you're losing your elections. Because you're filling your registration with phantom voters.
Frank's stolen election claim was backed by another national election denier.
I'm an engineer.
Who put up more charts and graphs.
I didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Did you get what they were saying?
Well, I'm pretty new, and boy, that's way above my pay grade. There's a lot of information that is just way past my IQ.
Is there any truth to what he's saying?
At a top line, high level summary, there is absolutely no truth to his claims.
Stanford University professor Justin Grimmer just published this research report that calls Frank's formula for vote manipulation worthless and wrong, a conclusion echoed by many experts.
It is impossible for folks who are just trying to go about their daily lives to know all of that, to know that this guy who's up there, who is an incredibly well-spoken presenter, is telling them something that is just simply junk. It's not true at all, merely a conspiracy theory.
My heart is to really reach folks that maybe don't feel comfortable going to a traditional setting in church.
It would be hard to argue that Pastor Swihart wants anything other than good for his community. He's a preacher and a military veteran who not only raised his own family, he and his wife adopted 3 children along the way.
What I care about is the Skagit Valley. My heart is for the people in this valley.
It's not Seattle liberals that are running the vote here in Skagit County. It's your own elected officials.
Yes, sir.
Aren't you criticizing your own community if you criticize the elections here?
I think that if we are concerned about the vote being valid in Skagit County, then what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We all should be held accountable for that.
Do you think a lot of churches are talking about election integrity?
I think they are privately, yes, sir.
Experts say that's evidence that the lie about stolen elections isn't fading. It's penetrating deeper into all parts of our society.
Certainly when this sort of conspiracy theorizing goes along and it comes from the pulpit, it sort of endows it with a level of validity that perhaps it otherwise wouldn't have. And I certainly think that's concerning.
Thank you, God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Great job. At Jefferson County's historic courthouse, prosecutors filed an unusual criminal case in 2019.
It's very uncommon.
It was based on this security camera video that shows a woman entering the mailroom at a mobile home park outside Squim.
We felt it was pretty serious.
She rifles through the community mailboxes. One of the things she's targeting are the ballots that have just been delivered for an upcoming election.
I paint everyone's animals on rocks.
Artist Sharon Murphy is one of the residents who will soon learn that the thief
it was all on tape.
Is the neighbor who lives right across the way. Responding law officers found bags of mail in the back of her car.
I was shocked because we were like, oh, she stole the mail. And then we're like, oh my God, our ballots were in there. But I was really surprised how violated I felt by that.
Prosecutors charged the neighbor, including several counts of hindering or bribing a voter, a first for Jefferson County's elected prosecutor.
I think is the only case of this nature that I have so far seen.
That kind of case is rare, according to this state database we received through a public records request. It shows only 42 voter fraud criminal cases filed statewide in Washington in the last 15 years. More than a third are dismissed without a conviction.
At the time, we weren't exactly sure what was going on with this individual.
The case at the trailer park is one of them that resulted in treatment instead of punishment.
It became pretty clear that this individual was in the midst of a mental health crisis.
This is the place with the most election-related prosecutions in Washington, Lewis County. Jonathan Meyer has been the elected prosecutor here for more than 10 years.
In Lewis County, if we see a law violation, we'll charge it. I think that is a reputation that we have.
Meyer's office has charged 8 voter fraud cases, 1 out of every 5 in Washington state courts.
Hi, Mr. Herron. Yeah. How are you?
Here in Randall, we're on the doorstep of the most recent vote fraud convict in Lewis County. When Carolyn Herron's ballot signature didn't match at the elections office, workers discovered she died before ballots were mailed out.
And you had actually signed your wife's ballot, correct? Yeah. Why did you do that?
Well, she had just passed away, and I felt that her vote needed to be put in.
Dennis Herron's wife died of cancer before the 2020 presidential election. Right here on the kitchen table, she'd left a voter pamphlet with her chosen candidates, which her 79-year-old husband used to fill out her ballot.
I come back from burying her, and the ballot was in the mailbox.
I think the prosecutor here would say, you made the decision to break the law, and this is on you.
Yeah, well, I guess I didn't realize that it was a felony.
He's an old man. Is it really worth going after him?
It drives the point home to the community that we're not going to tolerate that type of activity within our county.
In the state's largest county, King, a different approach.
It's really, to me, overkill to put these in front of a judge, to use criminal justice resources, unless you see something that's an organized effort to sway the election.
Longtime elected prosecutor Dan Satterberg says vote fraud usually involves one-time violators like Dennis Herron.
All for what? So that we can make this widower feel even worse?
His office sends warning letters to the family of deceased voters instead of prosecution.
You know, some people would say, I think you're letting them get away with it.
In my office, I've got 235 murder cases to get to a jury. Do I want to charge somebody for voting for their dead spouse and put that right alongside those other cases and try to get it into court?
We visited some of the 22 King County homes that received warning letters for ballot return for deceased voter in the 2020 presidential election. At least one widow disputes the suggestion that she voted for her deceased husband.
You're saying that he did sign that ballot?
He scribbled on it. It didn't have his exact signature.
Cindy Kalsa says her husband, Sadah, died from COVID right after he voted. But we pointed out it was more than a ballot signature mismatch that made authorities suspicious.
Let me just read you a line off of this. It says, records show the voter was deceased prior to the date the ballot was issued by the county. Is that true?
So they're claiming the ballots weren't even out?
You had the ballot before he died.
I don't know. I know that I had him sign something.
We double-checked with King County Elections, which confirms ballots were mailed out October 14th, 2020, 2 weeks after her husband died. When confronted, Kalsa asked for a second interview to make an admission.
2 weeks after he passed away, I got the ballot. I wasn't thinking right or wrong. I wanted to honor him, and I signed the ballot and I sent it in. What I had done was wrong.
Why didn't you tell us the truth in the beginning?
Emotionally, I wasn't in the right place. I'm truthfully sorry that I sent it in.
In another county, her case may have been handled differently, like Dennis Herron's.
Do you regret doing that?
No, it really is.
We found the cases in Washington court records are mostly one-time crimes of opportunity. And although prosecutors handle them differently, they all agree on one thing.
You feel the elections here in Lewis County are secure?
Yes. We just don't see these cases very frequently.
The big story is there is zero evidence of any widespread voter fraud.
There is one case of organized voter fraud in Washington's history books. It happened in 2006 when some paid signature gatherers got together and decided to forge signatures, and then they turned them into the elections office saying these are people who wanted to register to vote. They got caught, they were convicted, they went to jail, and their motivation wasn't politics at all. They were simply trying to make a buck by turning in more signatures. Thanks for watching our series, The Fraud Crusade. We started this project during the summer to look into concerns that our elections were being stolen through corruption or incompetence. We want to say that we have not found any evidence of widespread vote fraud. That is, there's so many holes in our system that people everywhere are cheating, or organized vote fraud, where people are getting together to try to win an election by cheating. We haven't seen any of that. What we have seen is that natural friction that occurs in a democracy between having a secure vote, a secure election, and making sure that our voting process is accessible so that people have the opportunity to cast their ballot in a fair way. That's a healthy debate that will last as long as our democracy. However, I want to repeat our bottom line here. After months of looking into this, we have found no evidence of widespread or organized voter fraud in Washington state elections. I'm Chris Ingalls from the King 5 Investigators. I'll see you again soon.